Hey everyone, this is Kalegi with Tim Moore reminding you that SportsSpeak is now powered by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the one-stop shop for tickets to sporting events, concerts, and so much more.
Use the promo code SportsSpeak at checkout for $20 off your first purchase.
SeatGeek, let there be live. Now, on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of SportsSpeak Live, episode 150. I'm Kalegi.
And I'm Tim Moore.
Joining us, we have a big show today. Liv Lorincz is joining us now. We're going to talk about the biggest news in sports, which is Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift together. And she was at the Chiefs game. She's going to be at the Chiefs-Jets game. We're going to talk about that. Later on, Rahill Jaiswal is joining us. It's the final weekend of the Major League Baseball season. He'll talk about that and a little NFL as well with 3 weeks in the books. But the biggest story in football right now is Taylor Swift being there for Travis Kelce. Kelce's got his lady. She's there. She's in the box with Donna watching the game. And I mean, the NFL is talking a lot about it. Everybody is. But, you know, even if we're not Swifties ourselves, we are joined by someone who is. And I mean, she has a following, a big following. And it's pretty clear that people are tuning into the NFL. If you look at the jersey sales and the merch sales for Travis Kelce, Swifties are now watching the NFL that weren't before.
Oh yeah, it is. It is going crazy with the NFL right now. Like you said, Travis Kelce's jerseys are going up 400%. And like the women demographic is watching the NFL more. The ticket sales for the Chiefs Jets game is like crazy because people think she's going to be there. She may or may not be there, honestly. But everyone's tuning in. I don't know if you've seen the jokes. Everyone says that Taylor Swift is making Travis Kelce, and it's making a bunch of people mad. But the Swifties are like infiltrating the NFL and just like, I don't know, they're adding to it a little bit. They're learning about football, which is super interesting to watch. But yeah, you're on the money with everything.
Well, you mentioned about Swifties learning about football. Of course, I just mentioned before the show. I know who Taylor Swift is. I couldn't name a single. I can name maybe one, but I couldn't name 3 songs for example, with Taylor Swift because I'm just not a big music person. But you got to learn at least this week. I mean, media going insane, learning about Taylor Swift, all these things. I heard she's big with zodiac signs. I never knew about that before. But I do have to say this about Travis Kelce, right? I think, and Eddie, I'm sure you can agree with this from a sense of a podcast. When you think about NFL players, right? The biggest NFL player transitioning to a podcast and being successful was Pat McAfee. Now, with what the Kelce brothers have, I think what has been created now for Travis Kelce in particular, and going to live to the point that you just made about, essentially, Travis Kelce being made from this popularity, right? That of recent grown fame, quote unquote, even though he's always been famous, is the point that Taylor Swift makes him even bigger now, to the point that he's not just a football player. He is now a media personality. He is all these things, and there's going to be eyeballs on him day in, day out. But my question is, maybe from other perspectives you've seen, because I would imagine Taylor Swift's not the only person you follow, how hard is it going to be for him to handle this pressure of dealing with people wanting to be in his individual life? For example, paparazzi, we see what it is, for example, in California, for example. How strenuous is this going to have to be, considering the fact that he's going to be on a football field in front of millions of people every week? He's going to be home in his personal life, maybe even having people sit out of his house. To me, I would never want that, even if I were to be famous. It's scary.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, I am a big Eagles fan, so I watch the new Heights.
Boo.
Eagles fan, born and raised.
I have 3-0. Come on, Tim.
Yeah, I'm outnumbered. I'm outnumbered in here, but it doesn't matter. We're gonna win the East.
Yeah. So I mean, you're right. They did talk about the New Heights podcast that Travis said there's paparazzi outside of his house, and so it's like something he's gonna have to deal with. Like he has like a bunch of new followers on Instagram. Like he is in like a lot of people know who he is now. But I mean, he was he won the Super Bowl last year. Like he already knows what it's like to like be famous. Like he's one of the best tight ends in the league. Like he's doing numbers. So, and I also think that's why Taylor Swift was drawn to him. Like some Taylor Swift like history, she was in a relationship with someone, Joe Alwyn, for 6 years, and it's rumored that they broke up because like he really couldn't like handle her fame. And like that's with a lot of things with Taylor Swift, people don't really understand how big she is and what comes with being that famous. So I think the reason that she was drawn to Travis Kelce was not only like, you know, his personality, his looks, whatever, but I think it was because that he understands what it's like to be famous and like he can handle it. And because he has a New Heights podcast, the whole like Kelce Bowl, like made people know who he was. So it wasn't like he was a nobody before this. He did understand it. Yes, there's more eyes on him, but I think he's able to handle it really well. He did say in an interview that like, yes, on the recent New Heights podcast, him and Jason did talk about it with Taylor Swift being there, but he did say from like now on, mom's the word with their relationship. Like he talked about like that they were like went out to dinner and like everyone in his box had like great things to say about her, and he did talk about her and stuff like that, but he did say from now on like mom's the word with their relationship, which I think is, you know, great for her. She doesn't really like being talked about that much, but I think he's gonna handle it really well. Yeah, I mean, you said that the paparazzi are at his house and all those things that have to deal with dating or whatever they're doing, like the biggest pop star right now. But I think that what I've seen so far is that he's really handling it well and that he's going to continue to handle it well. So as it might be a little jarring, like paparazzi and everything, and like New Heights is now the #1 podcast on Apple Podcasts, and he's getting bigger, but I think that his personality and what I've been seeing, he's going to be able to handle it. And especially if he's going to, you know, not talk about it as much, that he'll be able to handle it. And I think that it won't like take over his life because he's still very into football.
And the other thing too, he's a really good player. Like, you know, compared to like, I remember when on the Nets, when they were really bad, when Chris Humphries was with Kim Kardashian for like 3 months, and the Nets were awful then. So it wasn't much of a distraction. Of course, with the Chiefs, when Travis Kelce is like your best player besides Patrick Mahomes, there's a lot of expectations for him, but I don't think this is really going to affect him on the football field. Something else I have a question about going back to Sunday. Do you think she was actually in the popcorn canister when they were like sneaking her out of the building?
My goodness. I mean, I didn't see any videos of her walking out of like, because people were lined up outside of his box. So I didn't see any videos of her walking out. I've only seen the video of her walking out with Travis, like in like some sort of back rooms. The reason everyone thinks that she was in the popcorn like thing was because for her tour, she's rolled on like behind the stage in a janitor cart. So that's why people are like, oh my goodness, was she in that popcorn thing? Because that's how she got onto the stage during the Eras tour. So I do think that there is a really great possibility, because if she were to just walk out, it could have been chaos. People could have like they don't have all that security that she has at the Eras tour. So I think there is a very, very real possibility that is how she was like chauffeured out of the box. I think it's a possibility.
The other thing I just think is crazy is how people just, I don't know, to every aspect of her, people are just enamored with, like that viral tweet about, you know, she's eating chicken fingers with ketchup and seemingly ranch. Like, I mean, no, you don't do that with anybody else. Like, what sets her apart?
I mean, I think what sets her apart right now is, I mean, the Eras tour made her so big, and the tickets were $1,000, and people always know Taylor Swift. They've always known her. But I think just like recently, I think it was the Eras tour that really put her on the map, because people want to see her, and just like her recent album, she put out the Midnights album. Like, she's always been big, but I think what really made her as big as she is now was the fact that she is going on tour with the Eras tour, and people kind of realized like, oh wait, I do want to see Taylor Swift. She does a lot of things that she sings songs that I do know of. And so I think the reason that people are so into it is because, one, she broke up with Joe Alwyn. She was just with Maddie Healy from the 1975. Like, people are really into her dating life. People have always been into her dating life. That's like been her thing, is that she dates and whatever. So I think the reason people are really into it is because, I mean, it started with Travis Kelce talking about her, that he went to the Eras tour. He tried to give her a bracelet with his phone number on it, and she didn't take it, and she was like so upset about it. And he kept talking about her on the podcast, like little things here and there. And then the report came out that they were hanging out. And so people started to get into it because people like Travis Kelce, they also like Taylor Swift, and people really like this pairing because, as I said before, he's already famous. He doesn't have to like go into this lifestyle of being famous. So people really like this pairing because it's so different. He's not in the music industry like she is. He's in the sports industry. So it's different, which is why people think it's going to be a good match. I personally think it's going to be a great match. I think his personality and just like the way that he handles his fame like really matches up with it. The fact that he's like mum's the word. He's not like going out and like, I'm with Taylor Swift. So I think that's why people are so into it. And people, I mean, you said that people don't talk about like NFL relationships like this. I think it's because it's Taylor Swift, because, you know, that's her thing is people think that's her thing, that she's with people, and it is Travis Kelce. And I think like the culmination of all that is making it really, really big.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, I don't think it could happen to any bigger personality, at least in terms of active in the NFL. The only other person I can think that maybe could handle that pressure would have been a guy like Aaron Rodgers, because he already went through the pressure. I guess, granted, nowhere near the amount of popularity. But for example, he had his relationship with Danica Patrick a long time ago. Eddie, you would know more about that as well, and how that created at least a little bit of popularity. But obviously, she's no singer. But you know, I guess because I want to go back one moment. Obviously, we just mentioned about how we believe she may have exited the popcorn machine. And here's my thing. It's not she can't, you know, walk on her own, because I understand the worry about the threat of the brigade and people being around her. But do you start to worry a little bit that maybe they have to start getting a little bit more creative now that people kind of know what to expect because of the Eras tour that happened? If you think about it, because to me, I feel like you have to find different ways now if you're going to sneak her around the stadium, because guys, you mentioned attendance is going to go up. People are going to be there just to see Taylor. Not even the game. I mean, they're going to be there to see the game, but they're going to be there just to see Taylor. So to me, if you want to best protect her, you can't do the same trick again and again. Maybe do, for example, we do for the President of the United States, where, you know, they have all these trucks and you don't know which security one he's actually in travel. Maybe you do that for Taylor. You put her in a bunch of popcorn machines, or maybe you find other ways to sneak her around.
Yeah, it is crazy, and you're gonna have to find ways to sneak around because, as you said, like people didn't know that she was gonna be at the Chiefs game. Now she may or may not be at the Jets game. People are just kind of assuming she is. I don't think anything has come out to be like. I mean, obviously, no one will say she will be there from her team, but people are buying tickets just to see her. So there will be, I'm sure, a bunch of people that are just like outside of her box from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. Like they don't even care about the Jets. They don't care about the Chiefs. They only care about Taylor. And so I can really see that it'll kind of be a little mobbed around whatever box, you know, the Kelces will be in, if they'll even be there. So you will have to get creative into getting her in. You might have to get her in like before anyone else gets there. You might, like you said, head up a bunch of popcorn like buckets to get her in, or like back passages, who knows. But just to stop there from being a total mob and like whatever, you're gonna have to get creative with how she gets in and out, because it is Taylor Swift.
And Eddie, if I can ask one more question, do we think when this is all said and done, obviously it's not going to happen this year, although to me, in my opinion, I don't think it benefits her. If this relationship stays as it is and it continues to build for years to come, could we see her eventually performing at the Super Bowl? Because to me, there's no perk for performing at the Super Bowl. She's already as big as it is. The NFL wouldn't even pay her to do it. That's the big problem with Super Bowl halftime performances. Well, but she benefit from it, in my opinion. But we know the NFL wants this to happen and this relationship to be successful because they think it could benefit them as well as the TV companies.
I don't think she will do the Super Bowl just because she's so busy with her Eras tour. And I mean, I don't even think it's about being paid for her. Like on her Eras tour, she gave like all of her truck drivers like $50,000 like bonuses just for being there. So I really don't think it's about the money. I think for her, because even if Travis was in the Super Bowl, she could just go there and watch. I think she wouldn't do it just because it's inconvenient for her. I can't imagine that she could like, because you have to go to rehearsals and you have to pick out the songs and you have like it's a big feat to like go to a Super Bowl. And so I just think that it would be inconvenient for her. I don't think it's the right stage for her because with her Reputation tour and with her Eras tour, she wants to put on a big performance. Like, think Katy Perry at the Super Bowl. She wants to put on a big performance. Like, she wants to do like costume changes, this, that. So I just think that it isn't the right stage for her. And of course, the NFL would love her to be there. Like, the ratings would be off the charts, and like the tickets to the Super Bowl probably go up a whole lot. But I don't think she would ever do it, because I don't think that it's just like her cup of tea. I don't think that's where she wants to be performing.
Well, definitely an interesting storyline all through the NFL season now to follow what's going to happen with Travis and Taylor. The fact is, a lot of people now who weren't watching the NFL definitely are going to be, and watching the Kansas City Chiefs this season. Liv, before you go, of course, you're an Eagles fan, as am I. They're 3-0 to start the season. Go Birds, indeed. That struggled a little bit the first two games, then against Tampa looked great on Monday night. Do you think this team can make it back to the Super Bowl this year?
I absolutely think they can make it to the Super Bowl. I mean, that might just be me being like, oh, my team, whatever. But I mean, what we're seeing with Swift and AJ Brown and all of that, I think they really have a good chance. They have a better team this year than they did last year. I think right now they're learning what works and what doesn't work. I think Jalen he's a great quarterback. I think he could do things that are better. I think I want to see him run the ball a little more. And that could also be because he's my fantasy quarterback. But I really think they still have Jason Kelce. I think that they absolutely could make it a Super Bowl again if they just like keep doing with what works. The brotherly shove is what people are saying. The 4th and 1.
The tush push. It's such a good play.
Push, the brotherly shove. I love that term. People want to ban it because they can't stop it. And that's my favorite thing about them. They hate us because they ain't us. I absolutely think that the Super Bowl is definitely somewhere where they can get this year.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to follow along. Liv Lorincz, our resident Swiftie, thanks for joining us here on Sports Speak.
Thanks for having me.
Well, again, a thank you to Liv Lorincz for joining us. Tim is not a Swiftie, neither am I, so we needed one here to help break down the Travis and Taylor situation. We're joined by someone who also isn't a Swiftie, but can help us break down a lot that's happening in sports right now. He's always here. Rahill Jaiswal, great to have him once again. Now, we've talked a lot of NFL over the last couple of weeks, and since there's this absolutely ginormous banner behind Rahill, we're going to have to talk about the Giants. We talked about the Eagles and the Bears and the Cowboys and the Jets last week. We'll keep it simple on the NFL because there's two storylines that I think overrule that right now. One is that the baseball season ends in 2 days, and there's still uncertainty in both the NL wildcard race and the AL West. So we're going to have to break that down, including some weird weather-related stuff that happened with the Mets tonight. That might be a little bit of karma for the Marlins after what happened in 2007 and 2008. But the biggest storyline of the week came out of nowhere, completely out of left field. Damian Lillard is now on the Milwaukee Bucks. And I know we all have thoughts on this trade. Let me just throw a few things out there to start. First off, I'm very happy for Damian Lillard. He deserved the opportunity to go play for a high-level team. He dealt with Portland for 10 years, and, they didn't give him much. He got to the conference finals once. He's a top 75 player in NBA history. He's hit 2 of the, I'd say, top 10 best shots in NBA history when you consider the degree of difficulty and the situation in the playoffs against the Rockets and against the Thunder a few years later. It's so nice to see him getting an opportunity. To me, he's one of the nicer guys. And I know everybody's saying he's a hypocrite because of what he said about running from the grind. Did anybody say Tom Brady ran from the grind when he went to the Bucks? Did Aaron Rodgers run from the grind going to the Jets? Can we stop with that? You know what? It's the way that professional sports are right now. There are very few Steph Currys out there that are willing to stay with the team for their entire career. Do I like that? Not necessarily, but it's the way things are. So Damian Lillard stuck with Portland for 10 years, put up with a lot of poor management and poor decision-making, and now he gets an opportunity to play for a star-studded team. Now, the fact that he's going to the Bucks is shocking. Nobody thought Milwaukee was in the mix. People were saying Toronto, Orlando. I mean, is he going to the Orlando Magic? I don't think so. And Miami, of course, was the favorite because it seemed like he wanted to go to the Heat. So there are 4 teams we need to address here. First, let's talk about the Miami Heat. Pat Riley is an incredible executive. How do you not counter with a second offer after they say no to the first one? I don't get it. I am perplexed. Damian Lillard would help that team so much. And I know they rejected the first offer. But when the Jets and Packers were the match made in heaven for Aaron Rodgers, we know that trade took like 2 months to happen. There were many offers from both sides. Both teams put different numbers up, and then they fixed things, and eventually they had a deal. You give up after one offer, that makes absolutely no sense because the Heat, while they did make the finals last year, lost some key pieces from last season. Kyle Lowry is 37 years old. Jimmy Butler's a year older. I think defenses have started to figure out Bam Adebayo, at least on the offensive side of the ball. So you could have really used Damian Lillard. So the fact that you just gave up after one offer is crazy. Now let's talk about the teams that were actually in the trade. Phoenix, to me, is the big winners out of all of this, besides, of course, the Bucks getting Dame. The Suns did not have much depth. They got some during free agency, but not much. And I know people are saying, oh, this isn't depth. These are like number 10th guys, 5th guys off the bench. It's still bodies because when you have Kevin Durant, you have Bradley Beal. You've got two guys that are extremely injury prone. Besides Devin Booker, almost that entire team is extremely injury prone. You bring in depth in multiple facets to this team. Grayson Allen can be useful. I know he cost the Bucks a little bit in the first round this year, but that's because they had him shooting the ball. When you got D-Book, KD, and Bradley Beal on one team, he doesn't need to shoot the ball. So he can just thrive in what he is good at, which is being a stingy defender and off the bench, which is what he should be. He should not be a starter. So that's good to have that. I also love that they got out from under DeAndre Ayton's contract because Ayton did not want to be there. A, does not give full effort on a consistent basis. B, in the playoffs, it was hit or miss if he was even trying out there, and he clearly didn't want to be in Phoenix. You save $16 million. You bring in Yusuf Nurkic, who, has been hurt, has not played more than 56 games over the last 3 years, but he's a good center. He's a double-double level player. So you bring him in, plus you have Bol as backup. So the Suns lucked out here. I did not think they were going to get involved in this deal. I think they're the real winners. The Bucks, of course, got Damian Lillard, but you lose Jrue Holiday, which I think is going to matter because Jrue has gotten better and better every year, all-star last season. Of course, you got to cut losses if you want to bring in a star player, but losing Jrue Holiday is tough. And for Portland, I think you could have gotten more for Damian Lillard. Again, Rudy Gobert reset the market last year. We saw what the Nets were able to get in returns for both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Damian Lillard is right near that Kyrie Irving level without all the baggage. So the fact that they got significantly less for him is concerning. The one good thing for them, they have both DeAndre Ayton and Jrue Holiday. They're probably going to trade them both and get even more or buy them out and they'll have some more money. So that's what I had to say here. Rahill, I'll go to you. And then Tim, I know you said you have some things in a comparison to the MLB, but Rahill, give me your thoughts on this trade.
Yeah, obviously, losing Jrue Holiday hurts, but mainly because we all know what Jrue Holiday does on defense for that team. But in this sort of NBA, what we saw last season, you have to cut your loss on defense. Jrue Holiday was not that great of an offensive player come this postseason time. And what happened? Similar to what Toronto did. They just built the wall for Giannis. Nobody else could make shots. No one can make a contested shot. You're having Grayson Allen Bobby Portis taking contested threes. And yeah, they played really well in the championship run, but it was offset because Chris Middleton could get his own shot. He wasn't there this season. He's very injury prone. We've seen that over the last 2 years. So now you bring in a guy like Damian Lillard whose almost motto is hitting tough contested 3-point shots. He can open up space for Giannis Antetokounmpo to do his thing. Because like we saw, when you build a wall and no one else can shoot against Giannis, the Bucks offense becomes very one-dimensional. And they're still a very good defensive team. People forget, Giannis Antetokounmpo was probably one of the best defenders in the league, especially in the perimeter. He can defend the rim. You've still got Brook Lopez, who in my opinion was robbed the defensive player of the year. I think it should have been him over Jared Jackson Jr. And he can also knock down shots. And you've got the lineup is still relatively tall. You've got Bobby Portis, who's a big perimeter defender, who's also pretty good. So you're still a very good defensive team. Also, not to mention the Celtics, they got worse on defense without Marcus Smart now bringing in Porzingis, who doesn't play that much defense, if we're being completely honest. So I think they're going to be okay. I think the Bucks are now the favorites in the East. You bring in Damian Lillard. He can knock down contested shots. People are right now bagging on Damian Lillard for, like you said, his the people calling him hypocrites. If you call him a hypocrite, you're kind of stupid in my opinion. Because let's be honest, if he really wanted to run from the grind, he would have been out of Portland 4 years ago. He would have been out of Portland after they got swept in the Western Conference Finals. He tried his best to stick there. Honestly, if Portland had just given him the correct pieces, I don't think he would have wanted to leave. If we're being completely honest, this is a guy that loved being in Portland. He signed a huge extension there when he could have left in free agency. He wanted to be there, but they traded away once they traded away CJ McCollum at the deadline. I think that was the last straw for Damian Lillard because he was really close to CJ McCollum. He was consistently their second best player. Once they gave him away, it was only a matter of time before Damian Lillard was going to go, for him to be completely honest here. So, and now you talk about Eddie, the Suns were also a very big winner in the trade. They get good depth. And might I mind you, Grayson Allen, like you said, he's a good defender. And the Suns don't play much defense to begin with, so that helps. But let's also talk about the Heat. Like you said, Pat Riley. This is now the second straight year. Remember, last summer they were supposed to get Donovan Mitchell. Every report was saying he was going to Miami. He thought he was going to be in Miami or New York. All of a sudden, the Cavs swoop in and steal him at the last minute. They were in the running for Kevin Durant as well. They couldn't land him. And now you lose out on Damian Lillard. Pat Riley's a great GM, but we're starting to look at him a little sideways. Miami. This was a Miami team last year that was solely Jimmy Butler or bust on offense, especially without Tyler Hero. Now they play better because Tyler Hero is not as good defensively, but they need some help on offense. So if you're a Heat fan, you're looking at Pat Riley thinking, what the hell is going on? You were supposed to land Donovan Mitchell last summer. You couldn't do that. And you were supposed to land Damian Lillard now this year, and you couldn't get the job done. So, I mean, his last big trade, if you really think about it, was the Victor Oladipo deal, and that hasn't worked out at all. So if you're a Miami fan, you're looking at Pat Riley with a little bit of a side eye saying, what is going on?
Tim, your thoughts?
Yeah, to me, it is absolutely devastating if you're a Miami Heat fan. But if I may, I think this is the honest to God comparison that's going to transition us into MLB here in a moment. To me, Damian Lillard getting traded to the Milwaukee Bucks is the exact example. Again, I talk about complacency on this show all the time. Milwaukee, right, turns around, does all this firing after they're out in the first round of the playoffs. And what do? They make a big move to make a big change. And of course, in basketball, as compared to baseball, NFL, right, one star could make the difference. And, Rahill, you mentioned a big thing as well for the Milwaukee Bucks. Defense, right? Every year we talk about these great teams, great basketball teams that have all these superstars. For example, the Brooklyn Nets of years past, the Lakers, so on, right? We think they're title favorites because they have all these big people. When in reality, a lot of times right now in this modern NBA, it's teams that are most balanced and consistent that find themselves in a championship picture. Yeah, we're talking a lot about Phoenix, right? They got some more depth, but can Phoenix stay healthy? Are they really going to be as good of a defensive team as they were when they were making that first title run a few years back? I don't know. I think this move for the Milwaukee Bucks is as equivalent as, let's say, the New York Yankees this offseason signing Shohei Ohtani and understanding that they have failed in succession to make a difference. It starts with an overall difference in coaching. It starts in a difference in GM, and it starts with an urgency. And the Milwaukee Bucks have an urgency, and I'm telling you right now, that is going to be the team when it's all said and done in the Eastern Conference that will be going to the NBA Finals this year, because that's what good franchises do. They make a difference. They see a problem. They analyze it, and they go and get their guy. And the fact that the Portland Trailblazers, Eddie, I also agree with you on, the fact that they didn't get as much as what they could have for Lillard is a little bit disappointing. But the fact of the matter is the Milwaukee Bucks got their answer. And the fact that this is like the Yankees back then, and granted it hasn't worked out to this point, and I know I keep on comparing to MLB, but this is like the Yankees trading for Stanton straight off an MVP year. You have a difference maker, but now it's what you make out of it. And I think the fact is, Giannis is judge, in my opinion. That's what I equate it to. Your Stanton, I guess, is Lillard. The only difference is Lillard's always healthy and doesn't go for the deep ball, even though he shoots productively from beyond the arc. Damian Lillard is that guy, and it's about time he got, I mean, granted, he's had a couple good teammates in Portland, but now he's got that teammate that's going to carry him to the promised land. And anybody that's denied him or said he's a hater, I'd like to remind you, I'm a fan of the team that saw our guy leave, go somewhere else, win a couple championships, come back, and then win our city a championship of Cleveland. So the fact of the matter is, don't call him a hater. Maybe he'll come back down the road and win Portland a title. You never know. But right now, let Lillard go get what he gets. And I think the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be your NBA champions this year with the mentality they have.
Yeah, absolutely the favorites in the East. Boston is good, but not to that level. Miami's going to take a step back. Who knows what James Harden's going to do with the Sixers, and the Knicks are still, I'd say, a couple of years away from true contention. The Cavs in a similar boat. So the Bucks right there at the top. and a huge move. Also crazy timing too, to see a trade happen last week of September, right before training camp is going to start. So the Bucks bring him in, perfect time, and he'll make his debut against the Sixers in just about 3.5 weeks. Now, let's go to baseball since Tim mentioned it. We're recording this on Friday. We're going to get this posted on Friday, so we're going to only have 3 days left in the Major League Baseball season. So let's start with the National League. Now, I just want to say, as poorly as the Mets have managed this whole field conditions situation over the last couple of days, boy, does it feel like a little bit of, I'd say karma, Mets fans might think, compared to what happened in 2007, 2008, when in back-to-back years, the Marlins, who were out of contention, knocked the Mets out of a playoff spot in the final weekend of the season. So the Marlins have kind of gotten screwed around, first with the weather in the first game, and then they ended up with the doubleheader where the Mets waited it out. The rain was gone, but the field was too wet to play. And then last night in the top of the 9th inning, the game suspended to Monday. So now if the Marlins are still in playoff contention, they're going to have to play a game on Monday, and it would be the last game of the regular season. It would be a continuation of a game that's already in the top of the 9th inning. So all of a sudden, we're going to get October baseball in Queens, not the way Mets fans would have hoped, but it's going to be interesting to follow along with. But the NL wildcard race, the Diamondbacks have been streaky all season long, but have gotten hot at the right time, and they can clinch a wild card spot tonight. Then you've got the Cubs, you've got the upstart Reds, and the Marlins all in the mix. The Giants have fallen apart. So it's really those 3 teams, because the Phillies are really in it, are already clinched. So it's 3 teams going for one final spot, barring a Diamondbacks weekend collapse. And the Reds have been great this year, Rahill. They're a nice story. The Cubs have been falling apart as of late, and the Marlins now have kind of not had luck go their way with weather. So at this point, heading into these final 3 days, who do you think's grabbing that 3rd wild card spot?
I still think it's going to be the Marlins. And the main reason is the Cubs have got to play the Brewers now. I mean, can we talk about a collapse? I mean, I feel for the people, for any Chicago fan, I got 2 of my closest friends here who are Cubs fans. Man, has this collapse been brutal. The Kurt Suzuki dropped fly ball the other day, another loss last night. And now you got to go up against the Brewers, who, you can make the argument the Brewers aren't really in it, but I mean, they badly want to knock the Cubs out of the playoffs. I mean, it happens with divisional teams. So the fact that you got to go up against there, and yeah, Eddie, the Marlins have gotten unlucky, but I think they got the Pittsburgh Pirates tonight. And barring any miracles, they should take care of business relatively easily. So there's a slim chance that they don't even need that sort of suspended game. They don't even need to play that, really. There's a chance that the Cubs drop a few this series against the Brewers, Marlins maybe sweep, and that's all she wrote for the playoffs. So I think the safest pick is the Marlins. They're half a game up. Obviously anything could happen, and this is again to any people who find baseball boring, screw you, because this is exactly why we love it. This is reminding us of what happened in 2021, where there was a chance we could have played that 163rd game, when it would have been a 3-way tie, I believe, between the Yankees, Red Sox, and I believe the Mariners were in that year. I don't remember exactly. It was those 3 teams. So this is just showing why everyone loves baseball. It's been a crazy season. The Mariners yesterday keeping their playoff hopes alive with that walk-off in the bottom of the 9th inning, praying they can get in. I love seeing Seattle. I love seeing Julio Rodriguez. I think the Rangers are also a great story. It'd be nice to get some new, fresh teams in the playoffs, with the Orioles winning the AL, clinching the best record and winning the AL. At least that's great to see, even though me and Tim are Yankees fans. I don't really have any hate against the Orioles. And this was a team 3-4 years ago that lost 114 games. Now they've completely turned it around and clinched the best record in the American League. So to answer your question, I think it's going to be Marlins just based on the strength of schedule, but anything can happen. I'm praying for the people of Chicago that the Cubs get in, but I think it's going to be the Marlins.
Yeah, and it's crazy too. I like how you mentioned that. When you compare it, the NBA and the NHL, which play half as many games, there's usually not these battles for playoff spots heading to the final couple of games. The end of the regular season, often people are just waiting for that postseason to start. In baseball, every year, there's always competition. There's always races going on all the way until that final game, and every pitch matters down the stretch. And Tim, that's especially apparent in this AL West that Rahill alluded to. You've had a 3-team battle all season. Rangers surged ahead early. DeGrom got hurt. They make trades, they surge ahead again. Scherzer gets hurt, they fall apart again. The Mariners had a big run right out of the All-Star break. They've suddenly tumbled to third, but got a big win yesterday. You can't count out the Houston Astros, who have made it to the ALCS the last 6 years and are the defending World Series champions. So when you look at this AL West right now, because the Rays and Orioles, both juggernauts, both in the 100 win, realm, they're easily both in. So that's one of the wild card spots there. Blue Jays are sitting right now with 88 wins with 3 games left. So they're in a good spot to get a wild card spot. So right now in that AL West, you've got 3 teams going for 2 playoff spots. Who's going to be the odd man out when it's all said and done on Sunday?
It's tough because let's be honest, when we think about Seattle, they have been in this situation now, the last 2 seasons, when you really do think about it, right on the brink. You would feel like at this point they have learned through adversity. Of course, the team, I guess you could say, without this experience would be the Rangers. But to me, on paper, the Texas Rangers are too good to be the odd team out. And it's just so difficult because I feel like if you're Seattle, right, you have a chance. You really do have a chance. You make moment after moment after postseason moment. But with how chaotic the MLB has been this year, and particularly that division, it just makes things so dang unpredictable that I just feel like Seattle has to be, unfortunately, the team out. But again, it's baseball. Anything can happen. I just can't vote against the Astros, unfortunately. I still think the Astros, as long as they make it, are heavily a World Series favorite. And the thing about Texas is you mentioned already, Eddie, injuries, right? When it comes down to the nitty-gritty, Texas, give them credit, did everything they possibly could do, not just in the offseason, but during the deadline to try to make this team better. And I'll give you a great comparison last season of when another team had control and it fell apart come the end of the season, the New York Yankees, where, again, what happened? Granted, I wasn't a big fan of all the moves by Cashman. He made a lot of moves, didn't work out, everybody got hurt, and then the Yankees fell apart in the postseason. The difference is here, the Rangers don't really have leeway anymore in regards to the fact that they're a lock to win a division or in the postseason. So really, if you're the Rangers, you're kind of on the skin of your teeth right here. But I still think, unfortunately for Seattle, they just don't have enough. But I would love for them to prove me wrong because, again, it's been the last 2 years where we talk about this team being in the brink and not being able to get it done. And let's be honest, Seattle, I think Mariners fans, I'm not speaking for them, but I think they would love to see their team in the playoffs because, I mean, think about through the whole era where they signed Robinson Cano and the team still couldn't be successful. At one point, they went through baseball's biggest playoffless drought in all of baseball. So you would love to see this team show progression, just like the Baltimore Orioles, who just 3 seasons ago we were talking about as one of the worst franchises in baseball. You'd love to see Seattle finally finish it together. And one last note I'll make about Seattle too, because we talked about obviously the slow start for Houston to open up the year. The other thing you have to think about is a lot of Seattle's producers offensively, along with their very solid pitching staff, did not get off the hot starts. And now guys like J-Rod playing excellent baseball. If you are going to be productive when it matters, now is the time to show it. And Seattle has a lot of September, October players. And if the team can get through the hump, even though I have them as the team out at the moment, if they can get through this hump, again, I know I mentioned the Astros. This team will be so exciting to watch in the postseason because they have those energizers. So I think the Mariners, again, they're going to be exciting. I just don't know if they have enough, though.
Yeah, a lot of really interesting storylines heading into the postseason. Can the Orioles make a deep run in their first run to the playoffs with this group? What can the Rays do? The Astros have been in this tight divisional battle this year. Has that maybe made them better and more battle tested for the postseason? Then you look at the NL. The Braves have been elite, but can they carry over into the postseason? Last year, an NLDS exit.
Am I wrong for thinking for the first time in a while that the Rays are the weak link in the playoffs this year? Considering all the injuries and situations they've had to face, the fact
they were close to being the weak link, at least in the American League last year, when you really think about it.
Right. Well, and they didn't do much to balance or get their offense better. So to me, I mean, yeah, Yandy Diaz has had a great year up there, top 10 in Major League Baseball in hits. But to me, it's just very chaotic. And give, for example, the Rays as well a lot of credit to deal with the Wander Franco situation and all the injuries. What is it, 3-4 players in a matter of a week breaking their hand, something like that crazy. I know they had 2 hit by pitches resulting in it, but the point is the fact of the matter. This team has gone through injury after injury after injury and has found a way to persevere and put themselves in position again through their great pitching. But I just feel like this team is of everybody that's going to make it. They just don't have it this season. And it's unfortunate for Rays fans, I feel. But I just don't feel positive about them moving forward. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised they're not the team we're talking about being on the brink of being out of the playoffs. That's the crazy part about it.
Yeah, because they stacked up so many wins. I mean, remember, they started like 13-0. They had a ridiculous first 2 months.
They're on a historic pace at the start of the season.
Mm-hmm. But here's the deal. You mentioned they don't have it. To me, what it is, they don't have starting pitching. That's the thing. I know they have this philosophy. I know openers are prevalent in sports. But guess what? At the end of the day, when you're in Major League Baseball, in the playoffs, pitching matters, specifically having guys that can go deep into games. Bullpen is big, of course, to get the big outs late in games, but you need pitchers who can go deep so that bullpen doesn't get too taxed early in the postseason. Rays can't do that because of those injuries. You lose Shane McClanahan. You have 4 starting pitchers who have needed Tommy John surgery this year. 4. So I think it's interesting, when you look around the AL East, the Toronto Blue Jays, on the other hand, who, have flaws. Yeah, they have never lived up to the expectations the last few years. But I saw a stat today. 4 of their 5 starters have made at least 31 starts this year. You have consistent guys who are out there game in, game out. Barrios has found a way to do things. Kikuchi's had a nice year. Kevin Gausman has had a good year, and Chris Bassett has been as consistent as last year. Even with everything that happened with Alek Manoah, they've had the most consistent rotation in baseball this year. So having those guys you can throw out there, and they've been pitching all season long, that puts the Blue Jays in actually a pretty favorable spot, despite the fact that they've never lived up to the hype in the playoffs the last few years. So that's going to be interesting. But again, between all of that, can the Dodgers make a deep run? What can the Braves do? We've heard they're changing their philosophy this year. They're going to have some games open to the fans. They're going to be doing some scrimmage games before the NLDS, just so they can be better prepared after what happened last year against the Phillies. Because that's the other thing too, before we shift to the Giants to finish. With this new format, what we saw last year is that teams that played in that wild card round, now that it's not just one game and instead it's a best of 3, that's enough of a period to build momentum, as we saw with the Phillies last year, as we saw with the Padres last year. You can build momentum and then catch a team that had to sit through watching these 3-game series and hasn't played in a week completely off guard. And all of a sudden, the team that played in the wild card round has the mojo and has the advantage, even though they don't have the home field advantage. So I think that makes things even more interesting in this postseason, Rahill. The fact that you've got these teams that are playing in this extended wild card round that might actually benefit them because they can get their footing in the playoffs and go in red hot into the divisional series against a team that's been waiting around for 6 days.
Yeah, well, that's what I loved about when they expanded the playoffs. A lot of people weren't a huge fan of it at first, but I mean, it makes it way more interesting. You get the best of 3 series, which is nice. That gives you a chance to build some sort of momentum. And you talk about it, it opens the way for runs. That's why any of these 3 teams in the AL West, whether it be whoever makes it, the Astros, the Rangers, or the Mariners, they're a dangerous team. They're probably going to get the winner of that. Will probably get by the Twins relatively easily. Then all of a sudden you match up in the in the ALDS against the Orioles or something like that. That's a really dangerous opponent. I mean, especially for the Orioles, who it's their first time being there. I love what the Orioles have done with their young group with Adley Rutschman and all those guys. It's a really young, likable team, for being completely honest. But I mean, the Astros have got the experience. The Mariners got in last year. They did their thing, and the Rangers are extremely talented as well. They have one of the better rosters in the league. So it's gonna be interesting, and that's why I think when you're watching these AL NLDS series, that's what can really make them up and down. I mean, we've seen it before, but now with the extended playoff format, makes it even more interesting.
Yeah, let's finish with the NFL now. Again, reminder, SportsSpeak, powered by SeatGeek. Promo code SportsSpeak, all caps, one word, $20 off your first purchase. We've got our SportsSpeak Fantasy Football League, 3 weeks in the books. My team's not looking so good. I just lost to a team.
We go to
no
war
wins.
this week, by the way.
Yes.
It's me and you.
Yep.
Yeah, so
And I'm going to be 1-3. I'm going to be 1-3 because
2-1 as well. Okay.
I'm not good. We are not good.
Only one. By the way, folks, only one undefeated team left. That is it. It is Tyler Glass,
Which we anticipated, because the way the gimmicks worked, he ended up with such a stacked team going in, and nobody's gotten hurt. And nobody's gotten hurt on my team. I'm stuck with Deuce Vaughn on my roster until October 24th. Like, please, I want to get somebody else. I mean, I lost Aaron Rodgers. I got Jared Goff playing. Like, I want somebody else to complement this team because I got no depth at all. And I'm stuck with Zach Ertz, and I'm stuck with Deuce Vaughn on my team until like Halloween.
About wanting players to get injured or go on a bye week so badly. Who would have thought?
I know. This is what it's all about. This is what SportsSpeak Fantasy is all about. Now, the New York Giants didn't want Saquon Barkley to get hurt, but he did, and they are 1-2 right now through the first 3 games. Now, those 2 losses were to 2 of the 3 best teams in the NFC. But let's finish with the Giants quickly. Rahill, I'll go to you. 1-2 through 3 games. They looked better in the comeback against Arizona, but they were down 20 in that game. How do you feel as a Giants fan with 3 weeks in the books?
I mean, I'm not too surprised. I mean, I had them starting the season this exact way. I had a feeling we'd get relatively destroyed against Dallas to start the season. Fortunately, the Arizona game, it wasn't as comprehensive as I thought, but hey, Arizona just beat Dallas. So who the hell knows what's going on? I mean, the Cardinals have played pretty well these first 3 weeks of the season. There goes one of my bold predictions of saying they go 0-17. But and the 49ers, like we said, the 49ers are also just a nightmare matchup. I mean, you look at the 2 games the Giants have lost. Let's break down the Dallas game. Number one, people are forgetting the Giants are coming in with almost a completely new offensive line. Young, haven't had much experience together. What's the worst possible matchup you can get? Oh, I don't know, maybe the Cowboys pass rush. And so obviously Daniel Jones had no time to throw. It was a complete disaster from the start. The blocked and then everything sort of spiraled out of control from the blocked field goal for a touchdown. And really from there, let's be honest, they never recovered. It was kind of just a thing where one thing fell and it all spiraled out of control. It looked like it was going to happen like that in week 2 against the Cardinals, but we'll give the Giants credit. They went pretty much perfect, 5 for 5 on the touchdowns in the second half. And against the Niners, I mean, let's be honest, the Niners should have won that game by more. It was a miracle that the Giants were still in the game after 3 quarters. The Niners were dominating them left, right, and center. This week is going to be interesting against Seattle. I think the Giants can pull it out. We'll see. There's a very good chance Saquon Barkley is back a week early because they've almost got a mini bye from playing on Thursday now to playing on next Monday night in Seattle. I think that's a game that's very winnable. I think that is a game that will really prove if they win this game, they go 2-2, and then they'll probably maybe lose next week to Miami, start 2-3 first 5 games. Not terrible considering if they start 2-3 and your 3 losses are to the Cowboys, the 49ers, and the Dolphins. Cowboys, probably one of the better teams in the NFC, even though they just lost to Arizona. 49ers, probably the best team in the NFC. And let's be honest, you probably say the Miami Dolphins right now, if they beat Buffalo, are probably the best team in the AFC. So it's not a terrible situation. The one thing I'm going to look for is how they can get Darren Waller involved. It seems like the best way to do that, short crosses over the middle. They kind of went away from that in the 49ers game. They got desperate, turned into one-on-one, chuck it downfield with Daniel Jones having no time. I think the best thing you can do with Darren Waller is get him over the middle, have him use his speed against these linebackers, because if he gets covered by a linebacker cannot keep up with him toe-to-toe. That's how they had success in Arizona. And then from there, you can try and take the deep shots with guys like Jalen Hyatt, who are extremely quick and kind of the deep threat guys right now. But that is mainly the best thing. We'll see if Saquon is back, even if he's not 100% Saquon, just having his presence on the field will open things a lot more because you have to game plan for him, not only in the run, but also in the pass. People forget Saquon Barkley can leak out of the backfield. If you get him in open space, I don't care if he's not 100% healthy. He is still more than capable of juking you out of your shoes and breaking tackles and turning a 5-yard gain into something around 25, 30 yards. So we're going to see this week is going to be really important for the Giants season. I'm not going to classify it as a must win, but for me, it's somewhere close to that. It's almost as close as you can get to a must win game.
Yeah, really meaningful game for both teams. Tim, we'll give you the last word here in the Giants.
Yeah, when I look at it schedule wise, I really do think 3 out of the next 5 games, the Giants have potential of winning, maybe even 4 of them when you look at it. I mean, the big thing is this. The Giants need to control their fate Monday. And the big thing again for me, obviously Rahill mentioned it, getting Darren Waller more involved is definitely the number one thing. But I also feel as well that, you know, Jalen Hyatt only playing 9 snaps on Thursday to me made no sense. You got to get him on the football field more. Granted, I understand we just got Wandale back. By the way, Wandale looked great coming back as well. So I'm excited to see more of him on the football field, really trying to take the tops off of defense. But overall, the Giants have a chance on Monday to beat Seattle. I really do think they're a better team than Seattle. Last year did not sit well with me of how the Giants lost that game. I feel like they have a great thing, great potential. But it comes down really, outside of the offense, it comes down to Wink Martindale. Wink is going to make me lose my mind as a Giants fan
I'm
this
with you,
year.
kid.
I love him to death. Love him to death. But how many times are we going to rush 4 or 5 on 3rd and 8 or longer, and teams are going to have a 75% or higher success rate against this Giants defense? It cannot happen. Just rush 3. At least catch them off guard. Bluff the blitz. Do something. Try to protect the sticks. It makes no sense to me at all, how Wink Martindale continues to struggle in those situations. But you look forward for the Giants. Dolphins, you have to be explosive offensively. The team hasn't been that to this point. By the way, against San Francisco, the Giants were just 1 play away from winning that game realistically. Just 1. They didn't come up when it mattered. San Francisco chewed clock, dominated time of possession, put themselves in a spot. Sunday Night Football against the Bills, to me, actually could be 50-50. The Bills have not really been as exciting to open up the year as what I thought they'd be. And granted, I feel like we talk about that every year with the Buffalo Bills, about how we think they're taking that next step. And Josh Allen right now is actually relatively struggling compared to what he does in critical situations. If the Giants can get him in a tight situation, force him to make turnovers, the Giants may have a chance to win that game. But I definitely have the Giants beating the Commanders, and I have the Giants beating the Bills throughout the next 5. So when you think about that on paper, 4 or 5 games potentially where they win puts them in a nice spot battling for a wild card. That's all I can ask for, but you need to win on Monday first. And I think if Saquon Barkley comes back Monday, great. If he doesn't, let's see them also run the ball a little bit more as well, because they had to play from behind, didn't have to do a lot of running. I would like to see Matt Breida and Eric Gray involved as well. But I think this is a big game for Coach Dable, and in Dable we trust. Let's go Giants, and hope they win on Monday.
Good stuff. Great episode. And next time we're on the air, it will be the month of October, which is the best month in sports. Baseball playoffs, NFL in full swing, hockey starts, basketball starts, college football, college basketball on the way, NASCAR playoffs, everything to talk about. And you'll want to join us here in Sports Speak. We'll have you covered on everything. Next week, MLB playoff preview. Stay tuned for that. We'll wait to see who makes the field, and we'll get you set for the Major League Baseball postseason 2023. Thank you to Liv Lorincz for joining us earlier to break down Travis and Taylor, and Rahill Jaiswal to talk a little NBA, MLB, and NFL. Reminder, SportsSpeak powered by SeatGeek, promo code SportsSpeak, all caps, one word, $20 off your first purchase. Follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at SportsSpeak Live. Our weekly pick'em for NFL and NASCAR. We'll give you some more fantasy football updates on the league as well. But that's it. Until next time, I'm Eddie Kalegi.
And I'm Tim Moore.
Signing off of episode 150 of Sports Speak. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you next week for the Major League Baseball post.